There was shouting and the sounds of shuffling feet. Jason was drowsy, and his arms felt heavy. He was on a hospital bed. Nearby, he saw a companion, it must be Nova. He turned to the commotion on the other side of him. Cassie and Sanjo were keeping school staff and paramedics at bay with a broom. "No, you aren't taking him until we talk to him," Cassie screamed, as if there were no other sick people in the infirmary. Cassie had bandages going up both arms. She had been burned by the incident the day before. Sanjo was also fully committed. Emily had explained enough about Professor Silvestri, and they were going to get their own answers. The four respective companions also defied the staff's commands. Kriya, Cypri, Nova, and Orion together made Cassie and Sanjo look fairly intimidating. Mr. Norbert was there with Blackjack looming far in the back. For some reason, Mr. Norbert seemed to be afraid of one of the companions. He pleaded with them to let the paramedics take Jason. Nova noticed Jason was waking up. "Jason's awake." Nova cried, and the others stopped fighting. Jason groaned as Sanjo sat him up. "Did you see it?" Sanjo asked Jason, begging for clarity. Sanjo's eyes looked bruised, like he had been fighting. Jason didn't know what Sanjo was talking about or how he got there. "Sanjo, my head is pounding," he said, grabbing him to stay sitting up. The nurse, who was the only one Cassie allowed near Jason, rushed to him. She pushed Sanjo away. "Give him room, guys. You really fought hard, but you have to be reasonable," she ordered while pushing Sanjo away. "Hey, Jason, are you hungry?" she asked. Dr. Larkspur had also refused to go to any hospital. Her arm was in a sling, and her forehead was wrapped in gauze. She watched the nurse ask the usual questions and understood their design. "What is your name and date of birth? Take a deep breath. Look into the light." She knew all these things and thought the nurse was very professional. She missed Kriya. Professor Silvestri wandered in with his hands in his pockets while everyone was focused on Jason. He felt guilty seeing that she was injured. When he approached her, she scowled at him but didn't say anything. Professor Silvestri quietly sat next to Dr. Larkspur. "We're probably in big trouble," he said, almost whispering. Dr. Larkspur looked confused. "Yeah, they got hurt, and I don't understand why they went up there." Usually Kriya watches them," she corrected herself. Professor Silvestri pulled his chair closer. "You don't know why they were up there?" he whispered. "No," she replied. "You don't know why they were up there," he gasped. "Was I supposed to know?" she asked angrily. "We don't know anything," Professor Silvestri said, throwing his arms up in the air. "Yes, you do," she accused him. Professor Silvestri composed himself. "No, it's that I thought you knew. I showed you Jason, and you had the broken one in your office. You gave him a sniper rifle, for crying out loud. I thought we were doing this together." He was going to continue, but she stopped him. "Don't call him that," she said sternly and rolled away from him on the bed. "Whatever, listen. It's Jason and Emily and—" He was cut off when Dr. Larkspur threw her lunch tray at him, getting everyone's attention. "I said don't you dare call him that," she shouted at him. Professor Silvestri had so much to say. All eyes were on him, so he excused himself quietly. Tacita was waiting for him at the door. "How is she?" the companion asked. "She won't talk to me," Professor Silvestri replied, shaking his head. "That's not what I asked you." Tacita sneered as she moved past Professor Silvestri and went to Dr. Larkspur's side. She greeted the companion warmly, and Professor Silvestri left with his hands in his pocket hanging his head. Finally, Jason could talk to his friends. He didn't want to go to the hospital, and he didn't want to go home. Nova was focused on Jason. "Jason, you fell a long way." "I was so worried," she said, hovering just over his lap. Jason shook his head, trying to remember. "I was standing in the observatory, and then I fell. I hit someone, I think," he said. Emily came to the end of his bed. "You knocked me off, and then you fell on the teacher," she said, crossing her arms. Jason touched the bandages on his head. "Knocked you off what?" he asked, looking a little afraid of Emily. Emily shook Jason's mattress. "You knocked me off the top of the observatory," she shouted at him, slapping at his feet. "You pushed the button," Jason accused Emily. "What button?" she asked herself, stopping to try to remember the memory of a memory. Sanjo was eager to talk to Jason. Orion had been trying to hold him back. "Jason, what did you see when the lightning hit?" he asked frantically, trying to rationalize something internally. Jason shook his head. "Sanjo, I only remember falling. I don't even know what I fell from," he said, trying to recall something. Emily folded her arms and turned away. "The observatory," she muttered. "Why don't you tell him what you saw, slowly?" Orion suggested over Sanjo's shoulder. While Sanjo told Jason about how they found him and Emily climbing the tower, Mr. Norbert was listening in. Emily and Jason had made that climb by themselves with no equipment. He had questions for his teachers later, like how Kriya and Sipri could exceed certain capabilities. They seemed okay, though. All gathered around Jason. His companion broke his concentration, casting a shadow over him. They acted beyond their will. Some of the other first years have acted oddly as well. "There is a danger of further injury," he said to the principal, giving him only the information he needed. Mr. Norbert sighed. "I know, but look at them. They are learning to consider new possibilities," he said to his companion. Blackjack agreed. "Yes. How long should I let this continue for?" he asked the principal. "Oh, I don't know. I want to find answers as badly as these students." "I know who to ask," he answered. He and Blackjack would be conducting an inquiry later, and they planned on disciplining the teachers who were responsible. Nova guided Jason to the Amigo dorms, even though he already knew where it was. She was learning to be caring, not really knowing what to do, but trying to stay close to Jason. It had been a big day for Jason, even though he spent most of it in the school's infirmary. The stories Sanjo and Emily told him would probably take all night to process. Every time they mentioned the woman in the lightning bolt, his own memories started to get foggy. It was almost like there were things he wasn't allowed to think about. When they arrived back at his dorm, and Cardi was waiting for him, Jason stopped at the door in front of Alex's companion. Nova floated ahead and challenged Encardi. Alex pulled Encardi away before anyone could say anything. "Relax, Jason," he assured him. "It's okay to come inside and settle in." "Encardi is still upset you fell on his mom," he explained, sitting on Jason's bed. Jason shook his head. "I actually thought he was upset about something else." Alex continued to push Encardi away. "Did you know in my first year, I fought with Encardi's brother and Big Cody?" He asked Jason if he had heard the story. "No," Jason replied, sitting on the bed with Alex. Nova hovered closely, interested in hearing Alex's story. Encardi and Inambro were fighting, and they dragged me and Cody into their little brotherly feud. Alex started, pulling out a deck of rogue sprite cards. "Do you play?" Nova was quick to find Jason's cards. "Yes, we play," she said eagerly, trying to cram herself under Jason's bed, but she didn't fit. Jason got his cards and played more for Nova than himself. Alex continued his story, while Encardi pointed out the next card he wanted Alex to play with his laser pointer. They fought over really stupid things. The dorm structure was almost dissolved, and I had a substitute teacher following me to every class somehow. "So you should cool it and take your time, you know?" He finished his story and made his point. Nova was into the card game, blinking her point light, trying to focus it into a laser. Jason liked what Alex was trying to say and played the card he thought Nova suggested. "Yeah, I can just go to class tomorrow and stay cool," Jason agreed. They finished playing cards, and the sun started to go down. Jason thought it was starting to get late and began his homework. Alex had put on a hat and jacket. "Where are you going?" Jason asked. "A bonfire." "Do you want to come?" Alex replied, happy that Jason asked. "I don't know what that is," Jason said. Alex wasn't surprised. "It's a big campfire. Some of us are going to party and listen to music. We aren't supposed to do it in the woods, but we do it a lot. It's a ton of fun," he said, enticing Jason. And Cardi spoke to Jason for the first time tonight. "Come on, Jason. We can settle things tomorrow. I want to show Nova the bonfire, too. She's never been to one," he said politely. Nova was bouncing up and down, obviously begging to attend. Jason smiled and felt a lot better. It was only yesterday that he was afraid Encardi might hurt him. They left together, exiting through the unguarded front entrance of the school. On the way, there were other students ahead of them who were also attending. Jason couldn't believe the teachers didn't know. Soon, Jason and Alex gathered with a small group of students on a dark dirt road. There wasn't much between them and the school, but the dark tree-line. Everyone greeted Alex warmly, and some hugs were exchanged. Jason recognized Reginald and remembered his name right away. Rex. Jason greeted him, trying to have the same energy as everyone else. "This is your friend, Reg?" one of the older students asked Reginald. Reginald smiled, as only Jason would call him Rex so far. "This is the cowboy I played laser tag with," he said, hugging Jason. "Please call me Rex. Everyone has been calling me Reg," he whispered. Jason wasn't a hugging kind of person, but Reginald seemed determined to make the name stick. Everyone wanted to meet Jason. He was taking names and shaking hands. There was a smooth roar and the clanking of metal coming up the trail. It was a student on a quad pulling a trailer, with his companion taped to the front as a makeshift headlight. The quad stopped in front of them. "The bus is here," Alex said to Jason. The student started to climb onto the trailer as Jason passed the headlight, which spoke to him. "Hello, Jason. It's me, Supri," a familiar voice said politely. Jason stopped and bent down to talk to the companion. "Are you okay?" Jason laughed. Supri blinked. "Yes, just make sure no one forgets me," he said in his usual tone. "I'm sure Cassie won't forget you," Jason assured Supri. They were all together on the trailer as the quad's engine revved. Jason held onto the cold siding with both hands. It was a pretty dangerous route compared to anything he'd actually done before. Any distance into the darkness was scary, so Jason looked ahead. Alex, Rex, and the other students were having a good time. Nova liked keeping pace with the other companions down the trail. The quad came to a sandy clearing by a river where Jason saw a fire as tall as he was, roaring with students dancing nearby. It went over one final bump before stopping. Jason got off first, but the others rushed ahead, leaving him behind. Even the quad's driver had already joined the others. Jason went over to talk to Supri first. "Hey, do you want me to let you out?" Jason asked. "No, it's okay, Jason. I'm needed for the trip back too. I'll be fine." "You should introduce yourself. This is a highly social event," Supri advised. Nova was changing colors. She was so excited. "Look at the fire, Jason," she cried, very much overreacting. "Okay," Jason said to Supri, and walked toward the party where the others were. Nova quickly disappeared. The music was loud and energetic. Stepping onto the fine sand, Jason felt out of place. He looked around. Students wanted to cue up their favorite songs and bothered the boy who had some kind of music player Jason had never seen. Some were sitting on a log away from the campfire. Others were dancing. Jason saw Cassie, kissing a student he didn't know. He was about to leave her alone when she waved at him. "Hey, Jason. I can't believe you made it," she said, running up to him and nearly knocking him over with a hug. She had glowing markings on her arms and face, as did many other students. "I guess Sanjo and Emily are here too?" Jason asked, hopeful that he would know more people here. "No, this isn't something Sanjo would really like," Cassie said, pulling out a marker. "Hey, Walker, let's get him all marked up," she said to the boy she was kissing. He had a marker too. Cassie introduced him. "Walker, this is Jason. He's new like me." Jason smiled and tried to shake his hand. Walker is an unusual name. "It's a last name?" Jason asked. Walker took Jason's hand, but wouldn't let go. "I'm a last name guy," he replied, smiling. Cassie started drawing on Jason's arm, and the ink was illuminated. Jason noticed that Cassie had a soft grip, and he kind of liked that she was drawing a heart on him. He also noticed Cassie's bandaged arms had color too, with many names on them, including Big Cody's. "I hear people call you a cowboy," Walker said, firmly keeping Jason's grip. "Firm handshakes, Jason," he suggested, and Jason complied. Cassie continued to draw on Jason's arm while he explained. "Yeah, I'm a pretty good shot. I only learned recently. I don't think I'm a cowboy." Jason tried to be casual. Walker released him, and Cassie was done. She was excited to see Jason's reactions. The symbols she drew on his arm were a heart, a diamond, a club, and a spade, with the names Cassie, Emily, Sanjo, and Jason written under them. "That's great. The four of us." Jason said, feeling a lot more comfortable and accepted now. Walker put his arm around Cassie. Those are the other friends you came to school with? Cassie was happy Jason liked her art, and Walker liked the card theme a lot. Yes, they were the first people I met. No one talked to me on the bus, Cassie said. Okay, now me. She offered her marker to Jason. Okay, Jason said, taking the marker. He started to draw a butterfly on Cassie's shoulder. Are you going to come dance with us by the fire, Jason? Walker asked. Jason was working on the second wing, which was perfectly symmetrical. I don't know, Jason said, trying to focus. It almost broke Jason's concentration when Walker started drawing on Jason's free arm. Let's try anyway, he suggested. Jason finished, and Cassie craned her head, trying to see the butterfly. Jason saw the students dancing by the fire. Big Cody was there and people gave him space, but he was having fun. Before long, Jason was covered in the brightly glowing ink. First years seemed to get it more than others, Jason noticed. The companions were also socializing, and Cardi had invited Nova to crash into the sand together as she was definitely too close to the fire. Students were watching them, and Nova was trying hard. One by one, they cratered into the beach to thundering cheers as they competed. Nova came out of the sand and stayed close to Encardi. I kicked up so much sand. I've never been in the sand before today, she said, looking into the imprint she made. Do you want to try the water too? Encardi asked. Nova blinked because she just hadn't thought of playing there yet, and she could already hear students and companions splashing in the water. Wow. Show me, please, Nova said, trying to shake any remaining sand off her surface. Jason had been coaxed into dancing by the fire with Walker and Cassie. Cassie had been really supportive, getting Jason to move around too. It wasn't long before Jason was engaged in a display of strength with a total stranger, pumping his fist in the air and body-checking each other until someone fell over. Jason, a voice called out. It was Big Cody. Come on, he said, charging Jason and nearly pushing him over. He was clearly being playful. Jason tried to knock over Big Cody, but he just laughed and body-checked Jason back, knocking him into the sand. It was still fun. Are you okay? Big Cody said, picking Jason up and dusting him off a bit. Yeah, sure, Cody, Jason said, a little nervous. Okay, try again, Cody encouraged, and everyone cheered. Okay, Jason said, hearing everyone cheer him on. He grappled with Cody and didn't lose his balance at first. Cody pulled him left and right, but Jason didn't move. He couldn't move Big Cody either. Big Cody picked up Jason and dropped him. Everyone cheered as Cody held his hands up in victory. The sand really saved Jason, and it was clear Cody wasn't really going to hurt him. Now me, Cassie shouted, helping Jason up. She suddenly grappled Jason. She was taller and stronger than Jason. There was an exchange of tripping attempts. She pulled Jason off his feet when he tried to trip her too hard. She also jumped for joy as everyone cheered. Jason noticed the fire flickering off her in a sort of appealing way when Walker picked him up. Good work, Jason, he congratulated him. I think they like you, he said, pointing at Rex, who had his shirt off and was pointing at Jason. The fire continued, and Jason had to wrestle a number of strangers, smearing glowing marker ink all over. He was holding onto his shirt and catching his breath on a log when Cassie came over with a friend and 2 bottles of soda. Can Holly sit with you? She was dancing, and she's a bit tired. Before Jason could answer, Cassie sat Holly down next to Jason and gave them both a soda. Thanks, Cassie, Jason said, opening it right away. He was pretty thirsty. No problem, stay put for a bit. We are going swimming, she said to Jason, waving and running off down the beach to join Walker and the others. For a second, it was quiet, and then Holly spoke. It's so good. Where did Cassie get cold ones out here? She asked Jason, breaking the silence. Cassie has a lot of friends, I guess. How do you know her? Jason asked. Holly shook her head. I don't know Cassie. She noticed I was tired, asked my name, and got me a drink, she replied. You're the guy everyone beat, she paused, knowing Jason would be embarrassed. But still, pretty cool to take on so many people. I got tired dancing too close to the fire, pretty stupid, right? She asked, nudging Jason. He was pretty embarrassed, having been beaten by everyone. "I'll come back next time and beat them," he said, trying to be bold. She laughed. "Really?" Holly asked, challenging him. "Maybe I'll start with Rex and work my way up," he mused, trying to be funny. Supri watched from the quad. He could see Jason and Holly clearly. She was laughing at his jokes and playfully slapping him. It wasn't long before the third year was brazenly writing her name on Jason's chest. Supri had seen this a lot, but he was always amazed at how teenagers behave when they are passionate. Tacita had come down the trail. Students were getting out of the water and going back to the fire to dry off. It wasn't unusual for them to lack the foresight to bring a towel. She was late to the party, having stayed late with Dr. Larkspur. She passed by Supri, who was still taped to the front of the quad. She saw Nova trying to escape the water, splashing up and down creating waves, and went over to help. And Cardi was there too, encouraging her. "Up. Lift up," he said, splashing next to her, trying to help break the surface tension. "Hey, is Nova okay?" "I'm about to do the show," Tacita said, hovering close. And Cardi stopped splashing. "Yeah, she just can't lift out of the water," and Cardi assured her. Tacita started to bump into Nova. "Come on, let's push her to shore," she said. They both pushed Nova back onto the sand. Nova was always curious. "Who is your friend?" she asked, still not able to recognize other companions right away. "I'm Flash," Tacita lied. "I put on light shows at the bonfires. I think I'm pretty popular," she added, but that part was true. Nova was able to lift herself back into the air. "Thanks, Flash. I am doing a show in a moment. You guys should join the others," Tacita invited them. Nova took off after her, joining the students and companions by the bonfire. Still sitting on the log away from the fire, Jason and Holly watched Tacita rise above the students. "That's Flash," Holly said, pointing up at the companion that was attracting a lot of attention. "She does these great light shows here sometimes." Holly was pretty excited. Jason looked up as Flash started to perform to instant cheers and students calling her name, at first just pulsing with a beat brightly. "That sounds great. I've sort of been into lasers a lot lately," he said, focused on Flash's performance. Multiple lasers rained down and swept over the students who had gathered to dance. Jason was feeling the energy of the snare drum in the song, visibly into it. Holly noticed Jason's enthusiasm. She thought that song was kind of lame, but it was popular. "You like this song?" she asked him, getting his attention. Jason nodded. "Yeah, I like this. This is pretty good," he said, getting back into the show. Holly liked that Jason was having a good time, so she grabbed him by the hand and made him dance. She spent all of Flash's show challenging Jason to match her energy. Jason was pretty far behind, but he had gotten the hang of this group dancing thing pretty fast. Flash's explosion of laser fire and stuttering beats signified her show was coming to a close. As the silence was about to settle, all the students cheered and reached up at Flash. She stayed for a moment to feel appreciation for her work, then she floated down to talk to the students and companions who didn't know her true identity. Jason was exhausted and had started searching by the log he was sitting at earlier for his shirt. It was gone. Holly was trying to help Jason, but she just threw her arms in the air. "I think someone has your shirt, Jason," she laughed. Jason scratched his chin. "Yeah, I think that was my last shirt too," he said, making Holly laugh more. And Cardi had left, so Nova returned to Jason. "Jason, I had the best time. I did so many new things, I think I'm going to explode." Nova cried out, and she was shaking in place. Jason steadied her. "I've never seen you do that before." "Calm down, Nova," he said, a little worried. Holly was interested in Jason's companion. She waved at Nova and started to introduce herself. Helping to put out the fire by pushing sand on it was Algol, Holly's companion. He hadn't been watching her. The night was close to over, so he floated to her. Holly recognized him by his dark red color. "Algol, this is Jason and Nova," she introduced him. "I met Nova outside of the theater once," he said happily. Having made their introductions, the group left to board the quad, but when they got there it was full. Jason could see some students were already walking down the trail guided by their companions' lights. Jason was disappointed he would have to walk, but Holly led him ahead before the quad even started moving. Jason walked down the trail with Holly. They made room as the quad clinked past them. Jason was curious because he had such a good time with Holly. "We danced pretty hard tonight, so do you like me?" he asked, trying not to be nervous or anxious. She bumped into him as they continued. "Relax, it's not like that. I like having a good time, and I hope you like me so we can party again next time," she said, trying not to break his first-year heart, although she loved the ink on his face. "Right." Jason sighed but thought about it. "This isn't bad." "Right, I'd really like that," Jason said, hopeful. "I'd kinda like to see Flash again, so I'll see you there?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah, I wouldn't miss one of her shows," she said, offering her hand to Jason. "Friends." Jason agreed and took her hand. They chatted and didn't really notice the students walking ahead or behind them. For Jason, this was new. Cassie was not far behind, interested in Jason's new hand-holding relationship. She assumed they must be going out right away. "I did that," she said to Walker, who was escorting Cassie back. "That's Holly. She'll break his little heart," he warned Cassie. "It's okay. I don't think it's a forever thing anyway. Let him be happy," she said, taking Walker's hand. The parade of students covered in glowing ink paraded into the school after emerging from the trilene. Most of them were tired and didn't pay attention to the two students sitting on the steps together, engaged in what looked like a very important conversation. They stopped talking when Jason and Holly walked up to them. "This is Holly." "Holly, this is Emily and Sanjo," Jason introduced them. They greeted her fairly politely. "What happened to everyone?" Emily asked. Kriya was on Emily's lap, and Orion was floating behind Sanjo. Before Jason could answer, Sanjo got up and ran to Cassie, who was still holding hands with Walker. "It happened to you too?" he asked her, looking at her bandages covered in ink, concerned. Walker introduced himself and was surprised to receive a firm handshake and a full name. "It was a big party, Sanjo. Lots of people were there," Cassie said to him, showing the smudged butterfly Jason drew earlier on her shoulder. "Jason drew that. Walker messed it up," she laughed. "Will you take me inside, Sanjo?" she asked, putting her arm around him and getting ink all over his back. "I'll see you later, Walker. I want to go in with Sanjo," she said, dismissing him. Walker left disappointed, wondering if the night he shared with Cassie was special or not. Holly had left Jason and Emily. The two were fighting about Jason not having a shirt. Sanjo had Cassie's weight on his shoulders when he returned to them. "Where's your girlfriend?" Cassie asked, always curious about potential romance. Jason had his hands in his pockets and his head down. "We're just friends." "She went inside," Jason replied, avoiding Emily's hateful gaze. Kriya beeped loudly to startle Jason and Emily. "What was that?" Emily asked herself, shaking her head. Jason took his hands out of his pockets and wiped the sweat from fear away from his brow. "I don't know," he said, looking at her confused face. "I was really afraid you were going to slap me," he said, trying to figure out what happened. I was really mad," Emily replied. They went inside together, with Sanjo dropping Cassie off at the girls' Fortuna dorm. He had gotten used to going there to get her for morning exercises. Jason passed out on his bed without checking anything. He got ink all over his blankets and made a big mess. He had a lot to do in the morning.
When I came to you, there were things that I wouldn't say. I will lie, I won't even say my name. The things that I do were not meant for you, but you